What if the first house of God on earth wasn't a temple of stone, but a mysterious structure, built in the middle of a desert, designed with exact precision by God himself, not imagined, not inspired, but commanded in every detail? Have you ever wondered what it actually looked like inside the tabernacle, and how God's house was really built? Because this wasn't just a tent, this was the tabernacle, the dwelling place of God among men. In a time when the people of Israel had no land, no cities, no permanent home, God gave them something unthinkable, a divine blueprint, a structure that could move with them, yet still carry the weight of heaven's presence, and every single element of it, from the materials to the measurements, was intentional, symbolic, and deeply powerful. But here's what most people don't realize. The tabernacle was not built the way we build things today. There were no architects drawing up ideas, no creative freedom, no room for human interpretation. Instead, there was a divine instruction so specific that nothing could be changed, not the size, not the colors, not the placement of a single piece. Why? Because this wasn't just construction, this was revelation. Inside the tabernacle, how God's house was actually built is more than a historical question. It's a journey into one of the most detailed and mysterious projects ever described in the Bible, a structure made in the wilderness, yet designed with heavenly precision, built with human hands, yet guided entirely by divine command. Imagine standing in the desert, surrounded by endless sand and silence, and in the center of it all, a sacred structure rising piece by piece, wood carefully shaped, gold shining under the sun, fabrics woven with purpose, every layer hiding something deeper, every section leading closer to something sacred. This wasn't random, this wasn't cultural, this was intentional design with spiritual meaning. And the deeper you look, the more you begin to realize this structure was telling a story, not just about where God would dwell, but about how humanity could approach him. So how was it actually built? What materials were chosen? And why those specific ones? How did ordinary people construct something so extraordinary? And what was really happening behind the scenes as this sacred place took shape in the wilderness? Because once you begin to understand how the tabernacle was built, you start to see that nothing about it was ordinary. Not the structure, not the process, and definitely not the purpose. And what comes next reveals something even more surprising. Before any structure could rise, before a single piece of wood was cut or a thread was woven, there was a people standing in the middle of nowhere. The Israelites had just come out of Egypt, out of slavery, out of a life defined by oppression and survival. Now they were free, but they were also lost. No cities, no permanent homes, no systems, no stability. Only the vast, unforgiving desert stretching endlessly in every direction. And in that emptiness, something deeper was happening. This wasn't just a physical journey, it was a transformation. A people who had known only bondage were now being taught how to live under the presence of God. But here's the tension that makes this moment so powerful. Freedom didn't automatically mean connection. Just because they had left Egypt didn't mean they understood how to approach God. There was distance, there was fear, there was uncertainty. The same God who had parted the Red Sea, who had sent plagues, who had descended in power on Mount Sinai. This was not a distant deity. This was a God who was present, holy and overwhelming. And the question that lingered in the air was almost unspoken. How can a people like this live near a God like that? That's when everything changed. In the middle of the wilderness, without warning, God gives an instruction that shifts the entire narrative. Not a suggestion, not a metaphor, but a direct command. Build me a sanctuary so that I may dwell among them. Think about that for a moment. The creator of everything, the God of heaven and earth, choosing to dwell, not far away, not on a distant mountain, but in the center of a moving camp, surrounded by ordinary people. This is where, inside the tabernacle, how God's house was actually built, truly begins to take shape. Because the tabernacle wasn't just about construction, it was about access. It was about bringing divine presence into human reality in a way that was structured, intentional, and possible. The desert was no longer just a place of wandering. It was about to become the location of one of the most significant divine human encounters in history. And as the command was given, something unseen began to unfold, setting the stage for a build unlike anything the world had ever seen. And as this moment unfolds, let me ask you something. Are you really seeing what's happening here or just hearing another story? Because understanding how God's house was actually built changes the way you see everything that comes next. So before we go deeper inside the tabernacle, take a second and tell me in the comments, had you ever thought about why God chose to dwell this way? And if this is opening your eyes even a little, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because what we're about to uncover only gets more intense from here. Because God doesn't leave the idea of the tabernacle open to interpretation. He doesn't say build something meaningful or create a place that feels sacred. Instead, he delivers a divine blueprint, clear, exact, and uncompromising. This is where, inside the tabernacle, how God's house was actually built reveals one of its most powerful truths. Nothing about this structure was imagined by human minds. Every measurement, every material, every layer came directly from God. Imagine receiving instructions where even the smallest detail carries weight. The length, the width, the height, specified. The type of wood, acacia, chosen for durability in the harsh desert. The metals, gold, silver, and bronze, each assigned to different parts of the structure. The fabrics, fine linen, woven with intentional colors like blue, purple, and scarlet. This wasn't decoration. This was design with meaning. And the people weren't free to adjust it based on convenience or creativity. The standard was absolute, because this wasn't just about building a structure. It was about reflecting something heavenly on earth. There's a phrase that echoes through this moment, according to the pattern shown. That changes everything. It means the tabernacle was not an invention. It was a reflection, a physical representation of something greater, something divine, something that already existed beyond human sight. And suddenly, the process of construction becomes something much deeper than labor. It becomes obedience. It becomes alignment with God's will in its purest form. And think about the level of intention here. In the middle of a desert, where survival would seem like the only priority, God is focusing their attention on detail, precision, and purpose. Why? Because how his house was built mattered. Not just the final result, but the process itself. Every choice, every instruction followed exactly, was part of something bigger than they could fully understand at the time. This is where most people miss the depth of the tabernacle. They see materials, they see structure, but they don't see the message. Because when God designs something, he's not just creating a place, he's revealing a way. And as these instructions begin to take form, something extraordinary starts to happen among the people. Something that goes beyond construction and begins to shape their identity. And that's exactly where everything begins to move from instruction into action, from divine blueprint into lived reality. Because what happens next is not chaotic, not improvised, and definitely not ordinary. The construction of the tabernacle unfolds in stages, almost like a sequence, where each part builds on the previous one, creating not just a structure, but a sacred system. This is what most people miss when they think about inside the tabernacle, how God's house was actually built. It wasn't just assembled, it was established with order. The first step was the framework, the visible skeleton that would hold everything together. Solid acacia wood boards were carefully prepared, each one measured to match the exact specifications given. They were set upright, not randomly, but in alignment, forming walls that defined the boundaries of the sacred space. These boards were anchored into silver bases, creating stability in the middle of unstable ground. Think about that. Right in the desert, where nothing feels permanent, a structure is rising that carries weight, balance, and intentional design. Then, as the structure stood in place, the coverings began to transform it. This wasn't a single layer thrown over a frame. It was a progression, the inner covering. Made of fine linen with blue, purple tache, and scarlet threads, created a hidden interior beauty, something that only those inside could truly witness. Above that came additional layers, including coverings made from animal skins, forming protection against the harsh desert conditions. From the outside, it might have seemed simple, even unremarkable, but inside, it was rich, detailed, and filled with meaning. That contrast was intentional. And then comes one of the most powerful elements of the entire construction, the division of space. The tabernacle was not open, not freely accessible in every direction. It was structured into sections, the holy place, and beyond it, separated by a thick, intentional veil, the most holy place. This division wasn't architectural convenience, it was spiritual design. It defined movement, access, and proximity. The deeper you went, the more restricted it became, reinforcing a reality that the presence of God was not casual. It was sacred, set apart, and approached with purpose. So as this construction unfolds, step by step, layer by layer, boundary by boundary, something deeper is becoming clear. This is not just about building God's house, it's about understanding how that house functions, how it separates, how it protects, and how it reveals. And I want to pause here for a moment and bring you into this scene. When you picture this process happening, what captures your attention the most? The precision of the structure, the hidden beauty inside, or the separation created by the veil? Comment, precision, beauty, or veil, because your perspective here matters more than you think. Because once you begin to see the precision, the beauty, and the intentional separation within the tabernacle, a deeper question naturally rises. Who were the people capable of building something like this? Who could take a divine blueprint and transform it into a physical reality with such exactness? And this is where the narrative becomes even more powerful, because the answer is not what most expect. It wasn't a group of elite architects or trained builders from powerful nations. It was a people who had just come out of slavery. Think about that for a moment. These were individuals who, not long before us, were making bricks under oppression in Egypt. They weren't known for craftsmanship at this level. They weren't established designers, and yet suddenly they are responsible for constructing the dwelling place of God. So what changed? The difference was not just skill, it was empowerment. The same God who gave the instructions also provided the ability. Specific individuals were filled with wisdom, understanding, and skill, enabling them to work with gold, wood, fabric, and design in ways that went beyond natural expectation. And it didn't stop with a few people. The entire community became involved. Men and women brought materials, gold, silver, fabrics, precious items, offering what they had for something greater than themselves. This wasn't forced labor. This was willing participation, a collective movement where the people aligned themselves with the purpose of building God's house. Every contribution mattered, every role had value, and every action was part of something sacred. This changes the way we understand the tabernacle. It wasn't just built for the people, it was built through them. Their identity was no longer tied to slavery, but to purpose. They were no longer just survivors in the desert, they were participants in a divine project. And that reveals something profound about how God works. He doesn't just give vision, He involves people in the process of fulfilling it. So when you look at the tabernacle, you're not just seeing structure, layers, or separation. You're seeing transformation, a people shaped, a purpose revealed, and a dwelling place established where heaven and earth could meet. And that's what makes this entire construction so powerful, because it was never only about building a place for God, it was about preparing a people to live in awareness of His presence. And this is where everything goes deeper than structure, deeper than materials, deeper than the process itself. Because once the tabernacle was built, it began to reveal something hidden in plain sight. Every detail, every layer, every division carried meaning far beyond what the eye could see. This is the part most people overlook when they think about inside the tabernacle, how God's house was actually built. They see construction, but they miss the message. Nothing inside the tabernacle was random. The separation between spaces wasn't just physical, it represented distance between humanity and the holiness of God. The materials weren't chosen only for durability or beauty, they pointed to value, purity, and significance. Even the progression from the outer area into the inner spaces told a story, a movement from the common into the sacred, from access into restriction, from approach into reverence. It was a system designed not just to exist, but to teach, because the tabernacle was communicating something silently. It was showing that approaching God required intention, that His presence was not casual, not ordinary, not something to be treated lightly. Every boundary reinforced that reality. Every layer reminded the people that there was a process, a way, a path that had to be followed. And yet, at the same time, it revealed something incredibly powerful. God desired to be near. Even with all the separation, all the structure, all the precision, the very existence of the tabernacle was proof that God chose to dwell among His people. Not distant, not unreachable, but present, within their camp, within their reality. That tension is what makes the tabernacle so extraordinary, distance and closeness existing at the same time, holiness and access carefully balanced, a system that both limited and allowed, that separated and invited. And when you begin to truly understand this, you realize that the tabernacle was never just about that moment in history. It was pointing forward, revealing patterns, principles, and truths that extend far beyond the desert. So now, when you look back at everything, the context, the divine blueprint, the construction, the people involved, you start to see the full picture forming. This wasn't just God giving instructions for a structure. This was God revealing how He relates to humanity, how His presence operates, and how intentional every step of that connection truly is. And now that you've seen it, from the wilderness to the blueprint, from the construction to the deeper meaning, here's the question that stays with you. If God was this precise, this intentional, and this detailed about how His house was built, what does that say about who He is? Because the tabernacle was never just a structure in the desert. It was a message, a revelation, a way of showing that approaching God was never random. It was intentional, designed, and deeply meaningful. And once you begin to understand how God's house was actually built, you start to realize that every detail was pointing to something greater than that moment. So now I want to hear from you. What impacted you the most in this journey inside the tabernacle? Was it the precision, the construction, or the deeper meaning behind it all? Comment precision, construction, or meaning so I can see what stood out to you. And if this opened your eyes to something new, there's something even more powerful waiting for you. Because understanding how it was built is just the beginning. The next step is discovering what was actually inside.